So we were all here for the same range of a couple years.
Yeah.
How about how we got to Christ for the Nations? Why don't we start with that? Zach, how did you come to Christ for the Nations?
My brother was here at Christ for the Nations. I came to visit him, and people kept prophesying and telling Jen and I that we were going to end up here, and we thought they were all Fruit Loops. And when we prayed about it, the Holy Spirit just like nested on both of us at the same time.
Wow.
And I turned around and said, "Did you feel that?" And she goes, "Yeah." All right, I guess we're going to CFNI. So I resigned a pastoral position to come here and go to school.
I remember that.
We had a friend who was our worship leader in our youth group back home, and he decided to go to Hillsong, but he said something about Christ for the Nations and said, "I would never go there because there's too many rules." And so, but for some reason it stuck in my head, and then when I graduated high school, I was like, I think that's where I'm supposed to go. And so my parents drove me down, or we came down for, I think it was called college days or something at that point, to like see the school. And then when I came down, I knew it was where I wanted to be.
So David, I bought a ticket. That was when buying tickets on the internet was new. I bought a ticket by accident. I'd come at the end of his first year.
That was a trip I officially confessed my life.
I was like, there's no chance, and I'm not coming to this school. But then that summer, the Lord just kind of started aligning things. I had like $237 to my name. I wasn't even approved. I got in my car and just started driving 24 hours. And then I think I pulled over at a payphone in Alabama, called my student ambassador, Melissa Luce Jackson.
Oh, wow.
She said, "I've got good news. You've been accepted to CFNI." I'm like, "Great," because I'm 6 hours away. And so amazing. I drove in, and it was just, the rest was history.
I came in 2000, same year as Dave.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a worship leader that came to our church a lot and led worship. And I knew that I was called to do worship. And so he had come to CFNI and was like, "Dude, if you want to do worship, you need to go to CFNI."
Yeah.
And so I toured the campus and immediately felt God's presence. And was like literally, it was like he drove onto the campus and just felt it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, this is it.
Right after I got saved, I was at a church where I called Christ Our King. It was at a church where Klaus Kuhn was the worship leader previously. And he was still attending. And at that time, I knew nothing about worship music. And Klaus told me, he says, "You need to go be trained in the things of the Lord. You need to go to Christ for the Nations." So I signed up for Keith Hewlin's worship leading class. One class. Rode down on a motorcycle with hair down to here. And I didn't know until the end when they posted the grades and it said I didn't graduate or that didn't finish the class, that I was supposed to swipe in. I just came to class. I paid for it and showed up. But I remember the first day I walked in, and Keith gets up there and had some students with him, just in a small thing over in what was the old bookstore and other places. So they began to sing. They didn't start on a song. They just began to all sing spontaneously. And I was like, so this is worship leading. And ever since then, it's been the most incredible journey to see what could happen in a cultivated environment like Christ for the Nations.
Yes.
So that was a fire start, and then came back to go full time. And Thomas Miller recruited me in for the very first inaugural class of the School of Worship and Technical Arts, or School of Worship and Arts at the time, no technical.
Yep.
So then shortly after that, got to continue on with all you wonderful people, all the good friends. Yeah. So it was the ignition that launched everything moving forward that I understood about worship. Started
the foundation.
Here. It was.
Amazing.
Absolutely. Wow. So, Kirsten.
Yeah. My dad is an alumni of CFNI.
Wow.
So I lived here when I was 2 and graduated when I was 4.5.
Wow.
And then when I was getting ready to graduate, I knew I was called into worship ministry at some point. I didn't want to be a leader. I just wanted to sing behind somebody. He said, "You should go to CFNI." So I went to Brownsville Revival School of Ministry.
All right.
And I'm not going there just because you say to go there.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I went to Brownsville, and halfway through my first year, after my first semester, the school split. And then that summer, about 2 weeks before school started, he just said, "You're only not going to CFNI because it's inconvenient for you to obey me." And I was like, "Oh, heck no." So I just immediately called Ben Hockey. I don't know if y'all remember him.
Yeah, of course.
And so Ben Hockey was like, "You need to call Melissa Luce." So I call Melissa Luce, and she gets me, connected. She's like, "Okay, you're accepted." So I just packed all my stuff up. I called my parents. My dad was like, good, finally. So I came to CFNI.
Well, I was in college back home. I was getting ready to go to Hillsong. I was so hungry for God, but I don't understand worship more. And so Mrs. Field, Rihanna Fields, brought the team to Fiji.
Wow.
Yes. And so while I was in college, we were hosting them. And I saw some of the CDs that came from here.
Yep.
And the worship was something that was really ignite in my heart. One night when we were there, when they were ready to be done, and we were sitting down, and we were talking, and she was like, "Would you like to go to CFNI?" That was 1998 when they came over, and that from '98 until 2001, I was working on trying to get my visa, and so I came over to the States and pulled into the GLT, and I gave my last penny. Nothing else in my pen.
Yeah.
And so that was the time because I got a scholarship
Wow.
from here.
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
yes, and that's something that was really grateful. And then I met her,
And I never let him leave.
That's right. How did you come to Christ for the Nations, right?
I came in 2001 to a worship conference. I came in the IB and I was blown away.
Yeah.
You know, because people were on their knees. I never saw that in my church. I was a worship pastor, but we knew that God was taking us from our home church. I said, I'm not going to bring my family here. There's no way. I was just excited, you know. My emotions are high when you see people worshiping. So that night I decided to come back to the worship conference. And this guy stood up and said, kind of what I was going through the whole day. And at the end he said, well, if that's you, you need to come to this school. That's how I made my decision to come here.
And what a gift and legacy you
Yes.
are and have been,
Yes.
not only in our life, for
Yes.
all of us, but in the life of the school. And so hundreds and thousands of students have been impacted by what you've done here.
Well,